So some reassembly of atoms would have to occur, but that would have to occur anyway, if only for us to be reunified with those who died so that we could live, and got blown to pieces for doing so.
Do you think it's been a life well lived?
I'd really have to leave that to others, Jeremy. I have to. I'm encouraged, I'll say this much, I've been encouraged in the last few months by some extraordinarily generous letters, including, these are the ones I take most to heart, from people I've never met or don't know. If they say that what I've written or done or said means anything to them, then I'm happy to take it at face value for once. I'll take that. And yes, it cheers me up. And I hope it isn't written with the intention of doing so, though I must allow for it possibly being for that reason. But in case you are watching this, anybody, and you ever wonder whether to write to anyone, always do, because you'd be surprised by how much difference it can make. Here's a regret, I regret not doing it more often myself.
Thank you very much.
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
Yeah, so that was Chris Hitchens, and he wanted to talk about how he viewed life and death in a very short and small nutshell. Nutshell, one of those buzz terms, keywords, cliches we're not supposed to be using. I saw an article recently on the Washington Post. I think it was Washington Post has this bad habit of copying other articles and getting, just giving them a byline, and bam, there they are. So you don't know where shit is originating. So I have trouble always. I don't want to hunt down who to give credit. I don't have time for that. So I don't know. I just wish it were more. I wish giving original credit to the original author or something were more simple. But so they were talking about what was a 250 item list, now a 300 item list of cliches that the publishing industry is out to kill, and I don't blame them. We really get tired of... Have you ever met someone that speaks in cliches? I mean, the first thing you hear rolling out of their mouth are these prepared statements. And 90% of the time, this type of person I'm thinking of, it's Captain Obvious. Well, whatever doesn't kill you, make you stronger. Well, that's not really true. Talk to a tree that a axeman is cutting on. All right, he hits it 6 times, and it didn't kill the tree. Let's hit it 25 more times. Are you stronger now? No, you're about to fall. And that same analogy works for the definition of insanity is to try the same thing over and over and expect different results. The same axeman must be insane. And yet, he starts with a tree standing vertically and ends with a tree horizontally, doing the same thing over and over. Finally, his way works. So, I think we should be careful with cliches and abandon them altogether, because what a cliche is a substitute for your own ability to come up with something creative to say. And most often, cliches represent Captain Obvious phrases, shit everybody knows, or even, like I just argued a couple of those points, even if they're debatable, they're still cringeworthy. Nobody wants to hear the same fucking shit said all the time. People like variation. So, I don't know. That's my thing. Here I am, possibly, who knows, maybe on my way out of this world. My chest was all fucked up earlier. You never know. I mean, I'll probably be fine. You'll probably be hearing me talk shit in 20 years still. But you just don't know. And when you have heart issues, you get clarity. That is one thing I agree with Chris Hitchens on. You get some pretty sharp focus. And but at the same time, I want to make fun of it. There's a part of me that does. I want to make fun of this whole concept that I need to start doing shit differently because I might be about to die. I got to poke with that because I'm not so sure I buy that. I mean, the one thing I can think of is I need to thank some people. One thing I can think of is I need to leave some closing thoughts in case it's that time. But there's also a part of me saying, don't change this show. Keep this shit the way it would have been if you were still doing it 10, 15 years from now, whatever. I don't know. Maybe that's something I'll play with. Again, nothing's rehearsed here. We're just doing the show. We do have some more clips to play, and when it comes to things like life and death, my faith goes to the intelligent folk. I'm talking the super intelligent folk. I'm talking those people that got big extra brains. You know, they have big heads. They look like bobbleheads walking around. And it's not just like, you know, because gorillas can have big heads too, but it has to be cognitive ability. So Einstein had a pretty big head. He had a big old fucking, looked like an extra, you know, some of those vans with, they have cargo on top and they have that little extra thing poking out the front. Yeah, you get a little of that. Michio Kaku is no joke. He's all about the bass, about that bass, no trouble. And I think we should play him. And he's got something to say on life after death, creationism, and scientific evidence for geological time. You'll know what he's talking about when you hear it.
Unlike all other creatures on this planet, we are the only ones who know that our time is limited. And this knowledge shapes us as humans. This feeling for the poignancy and transience of our lives has been at the root of so much of what we value in human culture. Throughout history, the awareness that our time is limited, that our life will eventually end, has driven humans to search for a way out. For centuries, religions have provided one. At the heart of religions, practically all the world's religions, there is the offer of eternal life, time without end. This is Wells Cathedral in Somerset. For the past 800 years, every Christian who's walked in here has been reminded that their soul is immortal. So I imagine that the promise of eternal life was a powerful incentive for the people who worshipped here. From their Bible, they knew that God controlled time. They read that Adam had reached over 900 years of age, and Methuselah, the oldest, he lived to be 969 years. So they knew God had the power over earthly time. And they believed that God could grant them an infinite life extension. It was essential that graveyards be placed close by so that the living and the dead were almost side by side. To the medieval mind, death was viewed as a phase, as nothing but a natural continuation of life. The problem today, though, is that many of us are more skeptical. To get everlasting life in heaven, you have to trust that heaven actually exists. Speaking as a scientist, I think that there is a problem with regards to the afterlife and religious immortality, and that is there's no proof that it exists. Remarkable claims require remarkable proof. But maybe you don't need proof. Well, I do.
And let me just say, if I may, and I ask you to, you may have to adjust your volume accordingly. We got that. And this is coming. Yeah. And we're not done yet. We got a little bit more here. So we got this here.
Yes.
Yeah. You heard him, right? Yeah.
Down goes Fraser.
And I just want to repeat the words that he said. Well, I do. Yeah, we need proof, because there's a lot of bullshit flying around out there, and we'd like to know what is most likely reality. And what doesn't appear to be most likely reality is motherfuckers floating around with big white wings sticking out of their back, walking around on the clouds, playing a fucking harp, with Wi-Fi on their halo, which are incredibly feminine. And I think we all need to just say that's probably not what happens. Let's hear what else he has to say about it.
This awareness that time stretches into a distant past has driven us for thousands of years to ask one of the greatest questions of humanity. When did time itself begin? In the 17th century, an archbishop from Dublin decided to find out. For James Ussher, the beginning of time was the moment of God's creation, of the earth, the heavens, and all of humanity. So he started with the Old Testament.
All Ussher really had to do was add up the various ages of the patriarchs, because the Bible tells us what age each person was when his son was born. So, for example, Genesis 5 tells us that Adam was 130 years old when his son Seth was born. Seth was 105 years old when his son Enosh was born.
But at the end of the Old Testament, the family trees run out. Between that and the birth of Christ, there was a gaping hole in history. So Ussher scoured the known world, looking for ancient historical sources to bridge the gap.
Oh, it's extremely difficult. The Babylonians date or start their year in spring. The Jewish chronology starts in autumn, and the Greeks use Olympiads. So he has to bring all those different types of sources together and link them up somehow to each other and then to his biblical sources.
For 20 years, Ussher struggled to reconcile the historical records from over 10,000 volumes in his vast library. Finally, in 1650, he determined a date for the beginning of time with stunning precision.
In the very first paragraph, Ussher dates the creation of the world to exactly the evening before the 23rd of October, 4004 BC.
James Ussher had established the very moment of God's creation. Compared to our lifetimes, 6,000 years is an incredible amount of time. But around 100 years later, that time scale was about to be dwarfed.
For all of Ussher's library full of books, the Earth itself was beginning to present quite a different story. And the first man to realize it was a problem was a Scottish farmer by the name of James Hutton. Here he is. James Hutton spent most of his life marveling at natural processes, mainly on his own farm. And his investigations would lead to an entirely new idea of time.
I'm about to look for the clues that led Hutton to rethink the age of the Earth and overturn Ussher's 6,000-year history. Geologist Dave Thayer is going to be my guide. James Hutton's insights came from Scotland. But Dave's brought me to a place where the same features have been carved out on a much larger scale. The Grand Canyon in Arizona. 270 miles of Colorado River flow across 2 states, carving out a chasm 1 mile deep. It's created a landscape on an epic scale.
Let's have a seat here.
Now, Dave, the Colorado River is a small little thing. How can the Colorado River gouge out such a huge canyon?
The river is digging the canyon deeper at the rate of 1 foot every 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time, it's just all this rubble is eroding down into it from the rain.
I see.
You can imagine how long that's taking because it's all changing to sand as it goes.
Wow. And how much rock has been carved out?
Well, there's 800 cubic miles of missing rock in the Grand Canyon.
A mile below us, the river continues to cut its path through the rock.
carrying it away in its silty waters.